Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue.
Oh, flex. Buckle up and join the best. Let's see, relieve your stress. So yes, let the music soothe your soul and keep it going just to refresh. Buckle and enjoy the ride from 2 to the half of the 5. Mondays to Fridays happening live. Where we gon' have a ball, you can text your guys. Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. Are you ready for the Traffic Avenue? Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. An applause for the Traffic Avenue.
Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays.
Detailed news, unparalleled coverage. Citi News on 97.3 FM.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Citi News.
It's 17:30 GMT. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. I am Umaru Sanda Amadou. Tonight, I'm here with
Akusia Ochre.
And coming up over the next 90 minutes, government secures staff-level agreements with IMF over a $3 billion extended credit facility subject to management and board approval. But the minority says this is nothing to smile about.
And the excruciating and unacceptable hardships in the country is not likely to end. Therefore, staff-level agreement to us means nothing. It must come with board approval and management approval.
Also coming up, guilty but free. Capital Bank's Emmanuel Ato Asian escapes jail term after striking a deal with the state to pay back money he stole.
He cannot hold any management position in a financial institution. If you take our constitution, because stealing involves dishonesty, he cannot be an MP.
There's more on that particular story and others here on Eyewitness News. There would also be business.
Finance Minister affirms commitment towards extensive stakeholder consultation on debt restructuring program.
Stay with 97.3 Citi FM. We are broadcasting around Ghana on a number of affiliate stations, including Tungsung 97.3 FM in Wa in the Upper West region. Also on Tanga 93.7 FM in Bolga in the Upper East region. In the Northern region, we are on Radio Bimbela 91.9 FM in the eastern side of the region. In the Volta region, we are on Revival 99.3 FM in Tajehu, Cool 103.5 FM in Ho. In the Ashanti region, we are on Focus 94.3 FM in Kumasi. Also, Orange 107.9 FM in the same city, Kumasi. In the Bono region, we're on Green Art 95.9 FM in Sunyani. In the Western region, we're on Beach 105.5 FM and Sky Power 93.5 FM. Both of them are in Takrady. Let me know what you make of the stories we are bringing you tonight. On WhatsApp, the number is 0549 986 996. 0549 986 996. We are also live on Facebook, and you're watching us via the Citi FM Facebook handle. Do drop your comments under the comment section on the live feed as you watch. Let's settle for details of our stories now, and the first one has to do with the IMF program.
And government has given a firm assurance that it is committed to complete all previous and ongoing engagements to ensure it secures a deal with the International Monetary Fund by first quarter of 2023. This comes as the IMF staff and the government of Ghana reached a staff-level agreement on economic policies and reforms to be supported by a new 3-year arrangement under the extended credit facility of about $3 billion. The deal was reached after almost 6 months of engagement. Speaking at a press conference, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta called for stakeholder cooperation to ensure that Ghana gets an approval from the IMF board.
Against the backdrop of the staff programs, let's be clear, that we are, Ghana, indeed blessed to conclude this SLA within this period. So in recent times, this is quite historic in terms of the speed in which we have come to this. And if we look also at the path that Zambia, Chad, and Ethiopia have gone to, we can see that this is quite a miracle in its making, and really to thank the fund for the commitment and dedication that have come through this. So the government and IMF teams, have really sacrificed to be here, and the team behind all of this, the staff, once again, at DOG and the staff at the Ministry of Finance under the leadership of Patrick Nomo has been phenomenal, and we thank them for this. Key to this has also been our two deputies, Abna and John, and also Charles, who left us. Just lots of work has gone into this. So the key deliverables over the period include the preparation of the PCPEC program, medium-term macroeconomic framework, debt sustainability analysis and debt management strategy, structural reforms to address structural bottlenecks, improve competitiveness and promote efficiency and effectiveness, a memorandum of economic and financial policies, and an agreement on prior actions which are expected to be completed before the fund goes to the board. All of this indicate that Ghana stands ready to complete all the prior actions before this is successfully done, certainly within the first quarter of next year, looking at the end of January, if we can push it as we have done this one. So we are committed to the program as a whole, and we will do our part to make it happen. The SLA is only one aspect of the approval process. More is yet to be done to secure IMF management and board approval, and that is what we, all of us as Ghanaians, should work to ensure that we go through. Key fiscal measures, structural reforms, and the medium-term macro-fiscal framework in the 2023 budget are aligned with the IMF-supported program. It is therefore crucial that we receive support from all stakeholders, especially Parliament, to ensure that the 2023 budget, including all revenue measures, are passed and not return to last year's experience that we had. And the creditors also to ensure a successful debt operation. So even as we engage the domestic in the exchange, we'll be looking for our discussions with the bilateral partners and also with our bond investors. And we expect to get through that so that we'll conclude with the fund and the board.
You heard that Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Now let's hear from the IMF Mission Chief for Ghana, Stefan Rudet, who has been highlighting some areas of focus to restore the country's macroeconomic stability and also debt sustainability.
The authorities requested an IMF-supported program in early July. We have since then been engaging very closely, and I am extremely pleased to announce that the IMF has reached a staff-level agreement with Ghana on a 3-year program that will be supported by an arrangement under the extended credit facility and in an amount of about $3 billion. Let me add that the agreement is subject to approval by the IMF management as well as the IMF executive board in the period ahead, contingent on receiving financing assurances from Ghana's partners and creditors. The Ghanaian authorities have committed to a wide-ranging economic reform program which builds on the government's post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, the PCPEC, and a program that tackles the deep challenges facing the country. I'd like to highlight some of the key elements of the program. It includes reforms to ensure the sustainability of public finances. And to do so, the government will implement policies that lead to a reduction in the fiscal deficit by enhancing domestic revenue mobilization and by streamlining spending. The government also announced a comprehensive debt restructuring. The program will also include reforms to strengthen fiscal transparency and public financial management, improve the management of public enterprises, bolster governance, and tackle structural challenges in the energy and cocoa sectors. Reducing inflation, preserving financial stability, enhancing the resilience to external shocks, improving market confidence are all also very important program priorities. Importantly, the program will seek to protect the most vulnerable and create space for growth-enhancing measures and social spending. Finally, the government is taking steps to promote private sector investment and job creation. Before I turn to the Honorable Minister, I'd like to thank him and Bank of Ghana Governor Addison and their teams, many of whom are represented here today, as well as representatives from the various government agencies we have interacted with. I'd also like to thank Parliament's Finance Committee and all the private sector, trade union, civil society representatives we have been engaging with over the past 6 months. Thank you.
Let's still stay on this because the minority in Parliament says government's pleasure of reaching a staff-level agreement with the IMF for a $3 billion support is premature. Speaking to journalists in Parliament, the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, says government must rather focus on securing a management and board approval of the fund.
What is important is not a staff-level agreement, but a management and board approval of Ghana's application by the IMF board, which probably may take us to April or even beyond. And therefore, staff-level agreements, I see them dancing and celebrating to it premature. Our debt is still not sustainable. The debt exchange initiative of the minister may probably fail, as many are refusing to sign on to it. The content of the external bonds are still unknown. They are running out of time to announce the haircut associated with the external bonds. So for the Minister for Finance to be dancing and say that praise me because I have brought an improvement in the exchange rate of the cedi, which was falling with some epileptics, praise me, he should ask himself, at what level did he inherit the cedi against the dollar? It was 4.2 cedis to a dollar. At 12.5, there is nothing to celebrate and nothing to honor him for. What he has done in the last 3 months, he's collapsed businesses, if not persons. And the excruciating and unacceptable hardships in the country is not likely to end. Therefore, staff-level agreement to us means nothing. It must come with board approval and management approval. If you read the text well of the agreement which has been signed, 2 important paragraphs. The second paragraph emphasizes reforms. There aren't enough reforms even in the budget for us to think that we are reforming and restructuring the economy. It's also conditional on other matters relating to making debt sustainable. A precondition. Unsatisfied.
So that was the minority leader. Well, he's also been asking for requisite details of the government's debt exchange program to be presented before the House.
Even the debt exchange, they must bring something and lay here for the people of Ghana. The Minister of Finance cannot just walk away as if everything in this country is determined by him. If you are doing haircut and you are changing contents of agreement, whether domestic or external, they are contractual, and those contractual comes with obligations. You must come and lay a paper in this house how he intends to work on the external debt. Because when this House approved those loans agreements, we approved them consistent with Article 181, terms and conditions. You can't vary the terms at your pleasure or as it pleases a certain minister for finance. Those terms and conditions must be brought to this House for our scrutiny to satisfy ourselves that he can go forward doing what is debt exchange. The information available to me, Mr. Speaker, is worrying. Even his debt exchange program is almost been boycotted. Let him come and inform this House how many people have signed on to it to save this country and to save the economy.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu.
This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. So as you heard, there mentioned by both parties, the fact that you have a staff level agreement does not necessarily mean you have secured a deal. The board of governors and also managers of the fund would have to take a final decision. And we are told that this will take us all the way to, let's say, early or first quarter of next year. We'll be following that story, also getting some perspectives and analysis when we come back. This is Eyewitness News. Please stay with us.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
There's something special happening at Heritage Christian College. Their bustling campus is right in the heart of Amasaman, just behind the Olympic Stadium, and it will amaze you what they are doing there. Heritage Christian College is churning out academic excellence with their comprehensive range of degrees, including Bachelor of Business Administration programs, IT, and theology. Don't forget to ask about their professional programs and short courses. What makes Heritage special? Heritage Christian College takes the academic experience further than ever with one laptop per student, flexible fee payment, entrepreneurial training with financial support, all delivered by a caring faculty working to develop your character and your intellect. Admissions are in progress, so call today on 054 7777 731 and get accepted. For more information, go to hcuc.edu.gh. Heritage Christian College, a university educating compassionate entrepreneurial leaders.
We're sorry to interrupt this program for a breaking news story. Information reaching us is that the whole country has been thrown into a state of joy and excitement about the new look of Total Energies lubricants. Our correspondent Kwame Owusu is standing by to bring us the very latest developments. Kwame, what exactly is the situation where you are?
Emmanuel, I must say there's a huge crowd here with drivers and customers extremely excited about the new Total Energies lubricants bottle. I have with me here one of the drivers. Hello, boss.
Yes,
you are live on Quartz 202.1 FM. Tell us the reason for your joy.
My name is War, and for 10 years, I use only Total Energies lubricants for efficiency and performance of my car engine. With a new bottle, it's easier to read, carry, and pour. New bottle design and color, new label, new cap, and security features with the QR code. Massa is the same superior oil quality. Challenge, this is performance at their side.
So you heard it right. Total Energies lubricants bottle have been entirely redesigned into a modern and premium pack to give you the best experience. Reporting live from the capital, this is Kwame Owusu.
Quartz, keep your engine younger for longer.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
You're welcome back to Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We are coming to you from our studios in Adabraka in Accra. Lots of you reacting to the staff level agreement reached by the government. Ejakwesi Kanga writes on our Facebook post, and he says, going to IMF now is not because of incompetence of the current administration. Tomorrow is pregnant. Al-Rais Sadat says, I really enjoy your chat with Kofi Adams and on Point Blank the last time. Okay, that's last night. Thank you so much. Kwashi Daniel wants to know how you can listen to us in Kumasi. We have a number of affiliate stations. You can do Focus 94.3 FM on the campus of the KNUST, or you can also do Orange 107.9 FM in Kumasi. Baba Chairman in Tamale says, so the NDC can't and won't stop the bad wishes for Ghana. If the staff level agreement means nothing, as Honorable Minority Leader wants us to believe, then it wouldn't be a criteria in the IMF negotiation. Yabag Riel says, my happiest week I've come across is when the dollar was rising. NDC is fighting and fuel prices reducing. Kudos to the Caring President, and the Peace Party, NPP. Baba Chairman, I think I've read that. Okay, yeah, I've read that already. Do send us your messages for 0549986996 or go on our Facebook post and drop your message there. Professor Godfrey Bokwin is an economist. Prof, you're welcome to Eyewitness News. The government is jubilating that it has reached staff level agreement, but that's just one of many steps that have to be cleared. The minority says there's nothing really to smile about. Please analyze that for us, considering also that there are oppositions to the government's debt restructuring program. Apologies, we've lost Professor Godfrey Bokwin. We'll try to re-establish contact with him. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We are coming to you from our studios in Adabraka in Accra. We are also around the globe on citinewsroom.com. So a summary of the story we have for you on Citi Newsroom is that the IMF has reached a $3 billion agreement with the government of Ghana. The story says the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has reached a staff-level agreement with Ghana on economic policies and reforms to be supported by a new 3-year arrangement under the extended credit facility of about $3 billion. According to the IMF, the authority's strong reform program aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability and their sustainability while protecting the vulnerable, preserving financial stability, and laying the foundation for strong and inclusive recovery. The IMF said to support the objective of restoring public debt sustainability, the Ghanaian authorities have launched a comprehensive debt operation. In addition to a front-loaded fiscal consolidation and measures to reduce inflation and rebuild external buffers, the program envisages wide-ranging reforms to address structural weaknesses and enhance resilience to shocks. An IMF team led by Mr. Stéphane Roudet, mission chief for Ghana, or chef de mission, visited Accra during the December 1 to 13 period in 2022 to discuss with Ghanaian authorities IMF support for their policy and reform plans. Quote, I am pleased to announce that the IMF team reached staff-level agreement with the Ghanaian authorities on a 3-year program supported by an arrangement under the extended credit facility in the amount of SDR 2.242 billion, or about $3 billion. The economic program aims to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability while laying the foundation for stronger and more inclusive growth. The staff-level agreement is subject to IMF management and executive board approval and receipt of the necessary financing assurances by Ghana's partners and creditors. He continued to say that the Ghanaian authorities have committed to a wide-ranging economic reform program which builds on the government's post-COVID-19 program for economic growth and tackles the deep challenges facing the country. Key reforms aim to ensure the sustainability of public finances while protecting the vulnerable. The fiscal strategy relies on front-loaded measures to increase domestic resource mobilization and streamline expenditure. In addition, the authorities have committed to strengthening social safety nets, including reinforcing the existing targeted cash transfer program of vulnerable households and improving the coverage, and efficiency of social spending. Let's suspend that and go on the phone lines and speak to Isaac Adongo. He's a member of Parliament for Bolga Central and deputy ranking on the Committee of Parliament responsible for finance. Honorable, you're welcome to Eyewitness News. Your side is saying that there's nothing really to jubilate about, but this is a first step of many, or one step out of many that we are going to go. And it appears things are working smoothly as the government has planned since they announced this IMF program.
Well, thank you very much, Umaru, and good evening to you and your listeners. Basically, like your intro is saying, this is basically confirming that government and the IMF have reached an understanding on what exactly needs to happen in order for Ghana to achieve the compliance criteria for a program. The government and the IMF are quite clear of the measures that have to be taken and the steps that government would have to walk in order to ensure that there is a program. So this is nothing more than an outline of a memorandum of understanding. That memorandum of understanding is saying that we do agree that given your circumstances, you need to get debt sustainability. That has not been achieved. To date, not even a single bondholder has signed up to the debt exchange program. So there's really nothing that has been achieved on that exchange program. The IMF says that you are agreeing that you need to front load a set of fiscal measures in order to cure the heightened fiscal risk that the economy faces. And government says, yes, we will take the steps. We will document what exactly we think must happen so that if we are able to document them and the IMF agrees, then you may pursue an IMF program that can be approved. It says that you have to take steps in order to rein in the level of fiscal dominance at the Bank of Ghana in terms of how much you are borrowing illegally from the Bank of Ghana, which is fueling interest rates and which is fueling the inflation and bringing some pressure on the exchange rate. And you say, I do agree. Now I will spell out the specific actions that I need to take in order to ensure that that happens. And I'll let you see those steps and agree with those steps. So what we are basically doing now is that we have a memorandum of understanding between the government of Ghana and the IMF on the number and the set of actions in terms of debt sustainability and the debt management strategy going forward, in terms of the fiscal actions, and in terms of the set of monetary policy actions that have to be taken. Now, what that means is that at this point in time, the diagnosis that was going on has been agreed. And we do know between the government of Ghana and the IMF what the ailment is. We also now understand what set of remedial actions have to be taken in order to cure the ills of the economy. And we do both agree that these are the conditions precedent that may lead to an IMF program. So really nothing is concretely achieved. But at least to the extent that we have an understanding with the IMF as to the way forward and as to what the ailments are and what set of policies that we think would address that, I think that is some achievement. And it is now left with government, not the IMF, to pursue the level of actions and put together the kind of program that will convince the IMF that we will be able to correct the kind of imbalances that we have in the economy.
Now, if we have
that is about what it is.
Okay, so if we've come that far, it means we can take care of the rest, or we can tackle the rest of the issue. Do you reckon there are some difficulties in attaining the rest of the requirements so that there's a possibility the fund would say no? Because all indications suggest that we are in for a good move.
So the most difficult part of the negotiations is where we are now. The most difficult part is how do we get Ghanaians who are bondholders and non-resident Ghanaians who are bondholders to sign up to government policy on debt exchange, which is a critical step. To what extent do we? The IMF and government agree to what levels our debt must come to. Now, the difficult task is not the fact that we have an understanding with the IMF to do a debt restructuring and to undertake a debt exchange. The most difficult part is not this understanding. The most difficult part is how do we achieve that? Now that there is opposition, I am aware that the banking sector has done an impact analysis of this current proposal, and it is quite clear that the banks do know that they will lose about 75% of value. And that if we were to even give all these 15 billion of so-called support from government of Ghana or Bank of Ghana to them for free, it will still not address that problem, and they will still be in a very deep hole. So clearly you can see that there's foot dragging. And of course the banks are not like anybody else who will go and speak about it and will make noise about it. But quietly they are disagreeing. And that is why, even though we have just about 6 days left for that offer to elapse, they haven't taken the step. The association of the securities industry players have issued a statement saying that in its current form, they disagree. And they would not want to sign up to a program in its current form. And some further engagement have to happen. Trade unions are saying that their pensions are already perilously low, and they do not think that they want to further aggravate the pension difficulties of their workers. And they're saying that these investments that are made by the pension funds are supposed to accrue some level of returns in order that the guaranteed and promised retirement can be met. Under this arrangement, they are not going to see those returns, and so they disagree. So you can see that the difficult part is not a pronouncement that we agree that you must achieve that sustainability, but it's about how do you achieve sustainability in a way that stakeholders are able to walk a path with you that is acceptable to both parties. That is the most difficult part that government must deal with. And so you can see that the difficult work actually starts. What set of policies are you going to be? It is a government that, if you look at its budget, basically has doubled its expenditure. The IMF is saying, take the set of measures that will train and realign these expenditures. And for a government that is not willing to cut expenditures, that is where the difficult task now begins. Do we continue with a cathedral? Do we continue with the size of government? Do we decide now to say that, look, let's bite the bullet? Do we still continue to run development authorities that only yesterday when we met them, we were quite disappointed that it has become a big fiscal hole for the country? Said that they are not completing their projects. They have projects sitting on their books to the tune of about 1.5 billion. And with cost escalation and inflation, these contractors are calling for price fluctuations that could double that figure sitting on the books of government. So you have these challenges that you have to deal with. And for me, the difficult task begins. The IMF and government has given the signaling of where policy intent must follow. The difficulty is, how do we walk that path? And for me, this is when the work rather starts.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. That's Honorable Isaac Adongo. He's Member of Parliament for Bolga Central and Deputy Ranking on the Finance Committee of Parliament. Let's hear from Professor Godfrey Bokpi now. He's an economist. Prof, you're welcome to Eyewitness News. It appears it will not be a walk in the park for the government, but the fact that they have come thus far, it shows that their commitments and the programs and policies they put in place are satisfactory to the IMF. You disagree or you agree?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening to your cherished listeners. I think that reaching a staff level agreement is an important breakthrough. And what that also tells you is that it tells you the level of commitment of the IMF in getting the country out of this mess. They have demonstrated their commitment by reaching a staff level agreement with the country, probably in a very short time. That's a lot of work, working around the clock. You know what that means? Now, what that means is that between staff level agreement and having a program now depends on our government to also demonstrate by completing certain prior actions that would enable the staff to present the staff level agreement to the board for approval. So the ball is now in our court. So government now has to walk its talk of ensuring that whatever that they have to do, and it's going to be quite difficult, right? The reason it's going to be quite difficult is that this is a government that hasn't demonstrated that it is actually participating in the burden sharing, okay? And because the government is not participating, the government is just doing the minimum in terms of expenditure-based fiscal adjustment, which would have helped in lessening the burden on the financial system. And therefore, there is a pushback. And the other bit is also the approach, right? The approach that seems to treat everybody else as subjects, and that government is royal, and royals make decrees, and it has to be respected, or you disrespect it at your own peril. That is not good for market-led economy like ours. And therefore, what government needs to do now is to re-strategize, right? Embrace alternatives on the table. But I also think that regardless of what government has done in the 2023 budget, there's considerable scope for expenditure-based fiscal adjustment that gives government that moral authority to come to the negotiation table. Other than that, you are not showing leadership. Right. Now, you see, there's some level of acceptability if I survey the market, that a certain level of debt restructuring is almost inevitable. If I listen to the Bankers Association and the other statements that have come, but I think people want to also choose the style of the haircut that they want to have. Government must be open to that, right? So let's not force the haircut in addition to the style also. So let's be open to the kind of restructuring that also preserve the balance sheet of the participating financial institutions. Because whether we like it or not, we cannot today, in the name of meeting IMF, getting IMF program, systematically weaken the balance sheet of the financial sector, of financial institutions. That in itself is going to affect our medium to long-term growth prospects, because government alone cannot finance its overall economic strategy. It will still need a robust banking sector, a robust financial sector to do that. Now you are operationalizing debt treatment at a time when inflation is very high, with higher volatility in the market. And if you mark to market government financial instruments today in the books of the financial institutions, this is translating to huge losses. And under Basel II, some of them may have to even bring additional capital or require some kind of liquidity support, right? Even though Bank of Ghana has hiked the 3% capital conservation buffer, essentially reducing the capital adequacy to 10%, it's still not enough to be able to, as a shock absorber, to in terms of the impact of that debt exchange. So to that extent, some level of revision is needed. But to bring your debt to a sustainable level, it should not take only debt restructuring. A combination of fiscal adjustment, right, both revenue and expenditure. So far, the 2023 budget is heavy on the revenue side. Remember that again has implications for cash flows available to households and then the private sector, right? But it is lean. It is too small on the expenditure side. Meanwhile, it has to take a combination of revenue and expenditure to generate a certain primary surplus, which will contribute to debt reduction. Then debt restructuring also comes to support by doing its part. But because the government has failed to internalize the austerity and they want to push all the burden to the financial system, that is why that pushback is unavoidable.
Which of the issues is going to be most difficult for government to tackle before we finalize the IMF deal, if we finalize at all?
I think some prior actions are largely within government control, audit, flagship programs, COVID-19, many of those things. But I think the critical one is actually the debt exchange. Okay, it doesn't have to take the form that a formal agreement has to be reached, but there has to be a considerable, significant assurance that creditors are on board and that they are meeting government halfway. Okay, so and that is not something you want to achieve over a month, especially given the approach and the attitude of government in how, because there's no credibility, right? This is a country where the president told us that there will be no haircut. Okay, so it doesn't have to get to the point where if my president tells me that I should look up for my own safety, I have to look down, right? So government will have to look at its own communication strategy, that when you tell somebody X, it doesn't have to be X bar, right? So how do we work together? How do we build consensus across the political divide? Remember, this IMF program would transcend beyond probably one regime, because it's a 3-year program. 2024 is election, right? So you need, for the implementation and general acceptability, you need to build consensus across political divide, across different occupational groups and various or multiple stakeholders in the economy or in the country. If we fail to do that, and remember, Sanda, that we are yet to go into the deeper austerity of the IMF program itself. Okay, when it is approved. Okay, of course, the 2023 gives us the visible tip of the iceberg, but there's more to come, and therefore you need broad-based consultation in getting everybody along, and not the approach that government has adopted,
in more or less trying to ambush the financial system.
Thank you so much. That's Professor Godfred Bokpin, is an economist. Let me speak to the government now. Dr. John Kumar is an MP and Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Finance. Doc, you're welcome to Eyewitness News. So you have achieved staff level agreement, but analysts and critics say that is not enough. There's actually more to come. Walk us through how you are planning to deal with this issue so that we secure the facility that we are really looking for from the IMF without problems.
Yes, thank you, Sandra, and greetings to your listeners. The good news is that today the IMF and government of Ghana announced in a joint press conference officially that Ghana has achieved the SLA, the sub-level agreement. Of course, it's not the ultimate, but it's a very critical step towards getting a program from the fund. Once you reach the SLA, then it now goes to the management and board for approval. And many people did not give Ghana the chance that it will be possible within 5 to 6 months to be able to achieve a staff-level agreement in an IMF program, in a bid to get an IMF program. So, on the whole, we just want to give thanks to God for His mercies for Ghana to achieve this at this level. We know that it is not the end. There are a number of things we have to do in terms of meeting certain prior actions before we are able to get the board approval. But we strongly believe that with the same spirit and cooperation and working together, we will be able to achieve that within a very record time.
Now, the challenge that has been seen by many is that your consultation appears to have been incomplete, because if it was complete, we would have seen lots of agreements. The Jamaica example is what comes to mind anytime we discuss the exchange program, the debt exchange program that you have brought about. They say that because you have not done wide consultations, you are having all these groupings oppose your program. How are you going to have a proper negotiation and a deal with the IMF when you do not have buy-in locally?
Well, Sandra, we have to clarify this issue of stakeholders' engagement. There are different components to this transaction. We have direct institutional bondholders who are going to be affected by the debt exchange program. And here we are talking about the banks and the insurance and all the institutions that have invested in bonds. And then we also have groups who are indirect beneficiaries of the, let's say, pension scheme. If you hear groups like the trades union and the other unions complaining about this scheme, they are not directly the bondholders. They have placed their investment with pension funds that have invested the money on their behalf. So there are different categories of engagement. Let me state categorically that all direct institutional bondholders were firmly engaged and consulted in the process. But we could not exhaust the indirect beneficiaries like the unions who are not direct bondholders. And of course, we couldn't have exhausted all interested parties in the process. So as government has already announced, even though we have announced the program, consultation still goes on. We are engaging all the unions and all the interested parties who are not direct bondholders, but of course are beneficiaries of such schemes. And then government has assured them that, let's say, if you are trade union Congress who have an interest in a pension scheme and your beneficiaries are on a retirement within 2023, and let's say there's a liquidity challenge from that pension fund, government has set up that fiscal stability fund to support the pension fund to be able to pay out all benefits to the said investor. So clearly, all these things will be resolved once we are able to explain to the extended indirect bondholders or those who have placed their investment with pension funds. So we believe that the immediate bondholders have been well consulted. We will continue to engage all the other groups who feel that they should have been consulted more. But don't forget the environment that we were in and the speculation that was going on and the fear and panic that people all of a sudden started announcing that people should go and withdraw their money from banks and things were going to happen. So we didn't have much time to exhaust all levels of consultation. But I want to assure you that we have engaged all the affected groups and will continue to engage even those who are indirectly going to be affected and support them throughout the process. I had Prof talked about the impact on bondholders, and it's true. But the problem is that if you are a bank and you are not operating in a strong macro fiscal environment, as we have seen right now, eventually you are losing a lot on the market. So you are going to gain more, and we are able to work with each other to improve on the macroeconomic environment so that eventually you have a better market to operate in and more gains to tap from. So this is a collective, we believe, a win-win situation if all stakeholders work well with government to improve on the macroeconomic environment, which will post a better returns to all players on the market. Of course, immediately we may have to give up some potential returns that we were expecting.
Now, do we have a timeline we are working with, a specific timeline by which time we expect that this deal would be firmly signed and delivered?
Yes, I think when government did the announcement on 5th December, we announced that I think it was 10 days or 14 days for all interested parties to apply for the new bond. So we're looking forward to, I think by next week, we should be able to bring the domestic debt exchange program to a closure in terms of engaging all potential players and stakeholders to come on board.
Is there any of the opposing groups that you have succeeded in convincing to agree?
Well, we'll continue to talk. Like I told you, all the unions that have come out strongly, they are not direct bondholders. So they are not the immediate targets as far as the program is concerned. It's rather the pension funds, the banking institutions, the insurance companies. Those are the ones that government, they have the direct bonds investment that government has engaged already and will continue to engage. And we believe that initially, of course, there were some uncertainty about the program, but with time, I believe people have understood that.
Okay. So no institution has made a U-turn upon engagement. Can you give us how many institutions have signed onto the program so far, if there's any?
Well, once the deadline is not up, I cannot give any details about who has and who has not.
Very well. We'll wait to see what happens before the deadline. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
All right.
Now, Dr. John Kumar, he's Deputy Minister of Finance. Now, let's go to the court. Today, the High Court has made a decision. It has convicted William Ato Essien, who is founder of Capital Bank. In that case that has been brought against him, he and two others who have been standing trial. The two other persons in standing trial with have been acquitted and discharged. That's Tete Neti and Fitzgerald Odonko. William Ato Essien, however, was convicted on his own plea, and he came to the court or came to an agreement with the state to pay the money that he stole back to the state, and for that reason he walks free, and he would have to pay that money. We want to quickly test this. We'll be having more on that on Point Blank when I engage Deputy Attorney General Alfred Chiayeboa. But before that, let's speak to Adam Senanu. He is co-chairperson of the Citizen Movement Against Corruption. Adam, is this something that falls within your radar, even though it was done in a court, an agreement was done between the state and someone who stole state money?
Well, yes, absolutely. To the extent that this was money that have been reported in the public space as being taken under circumstances that were undesirable, and that the investigations found that there were certain persons involved, is gone to court. And to the extent that there's a ruling where the money, there's been a settlement and money is retrieved, yes, it falls under a space, and it's an example of good governance to the extent that monies have been retrieved.
Now, there is a view that henceforth we should be proceeding on that line where if money is lost to the state, let's work at recouping the money and not bother ourselves sending people to jail. What's your view?
I think it should be taken on a case-by-case basis. I mean, if the evidence suggests there's been a repetitive attitude or engagement in such actions, then I don't think that just retrieving the money will suffice. And so I don't think that it will be in our own interest to just have a fiat saying that just retrieving the money is important. Retrieving is good, such that the state does not lose resources. But beyond that, depending on the nature of what has transpired, it may be necessary to go beyond that.
Let's leave it here. We'll be following that story keenly, and thank you for speaking to us.
And thank you for having me.
That's Adam Senano. He's co-chairperson of the Citizen Movement Against Corruption. And like I said, I'll be having an interview with Deputy Attorney General Afretia Yeboah on Point Blank, where he'll be explaining to us why the state came into that deal with Atuesian to collect money from him instead of sending him to jail. That decision was affirmed by Justice Eriche Bafo when he delivered his judgment today, having been satisfied with the terms that were discussed with the state or agreed between the state and the accused person. This Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. Up next, Neteli Nete in studio to bring us business news before Point Blank. Please stay.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Imagine you are home for the Christmas holidays. Happy. You are trying to make new meals with exciting recipes you found on YouTube. You're posting pictures of your activities on social media. You're playing online games, watching live matches, you're streaming movies, you're chatting, you're video calling, you're browsing. You are happy. This is an unlimited Vodafone Christmas.
The unlimited Christmas promo is back. Get 30 days of unlimited browsing on Vodafone fixed broadband when you pay 2 months or more in advance. Stay connected this Christmas. Simply dial *900#. Visit www.fdp.vodafone.com or download my Vodafone app to subscribe now. Terms and conditions apply.
Vodafone, further together.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Get the details. Every significant financial transaction, every market movement, and all the policies that affect your business. Citi Business News. Be informed.
Time now for Citi Business News on Eyewitness News, powered by citibusinessnews.com. My name is Neteli Nete Ajahu. Let's settle for the details. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has assured the various worker unions and associations of continuous consultation to ensure that the debt restructuring program alludes to the interest of all. The minister maintains that the implementation of the IMF program will be clearly met with some reforms and expenditure cuts as earlier announced in the 2023 budget. These reforms, he says, should be accepted by all parties to ensure that the economy becomes stable. His comments come on the back of concerns raised by the Trades Union Congress and other labor unions resisting attempts by government to touch pension funds as part of measures to restore macroeconomic stability.
You know, all of these things are shocks that we need to analyze and then make determinations as to how best to move forward as a nation. But we've been able to do literally the impossible in this difficult environment to be signing an SLA at this point. So let's look at the opportunity that offers us, and within that context, see how we can save the funds that we have in terms of pension funds, etc. Because a destabilized macro environment is the greatest enemy to the value of our pensions, and I think that's what we need to juxtapose and then come to some conclusions. So sort of the issue of various programs, including free education. I think if you listen to Stefan, there was a clarity of the issue of preservation and enhancing actually social interventions.
That was Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. The agribusiness sector of the Association of Ghana Industries says it will soon activate initiatives targeted at the youth to boost the agribusiness sector. The association maintains that this continuous advocacy and partnerships with financial institutions to provide funding support to the youth will aid in making the sector an attractive venture for employment. Sharing his 5-vision agenda with the media, the newly elected chairman of the agribusiness sector of the AGI, William Ejemenu, said the association will ensure farmers get insured with micro-insurance companies.
The 5-point agenda encapsulates my vision for the AGI agribusiness sector. The first one has to do with advocacy to encourage more young people to venture into agribusiness. And so very soon you will be hearing a launch in Youth in Modern Agribusiness program that AGI will be championing to ensure that we get young people into the agribusiness venture in a more sustainable way. And the second point agenda is to support a blended financing in agribusiness. In the blended financing, we're looking at the agri-insurance, climate financing, and long-term investment. This long-term investment includes the zero-rated financing for viable agribusinesses. And this one would include the Bank of Ghana, the investment banks, and then also the insurance companies and all that. The third agenda is to also promote the digitalization and formalization of the agribusiness industry in Ghana. Farmers' pension, social security for farmers. We are going to ensure that we advocate for farmers to get micro insurance, to also get social security, and also life insurance and health insurance as well.
That was the chairman of the agribusiness sector of the Association of Ghana Industries, William Ejemenu. The Ghana Exports Promotion Authority says it is confident in the Youth in Exports program will help expand Ghana's export base. GEPA rolled out the Youth in Exports program to capture some national service personnel who desire to venture into the export of made-in-Ghana goods. In 2020, the first batch of beneficiaries, numbering 20, received mentorship training for 6 months and were then provided with logistics as a head start. Speaking at the President's National Awards for Export Achievement for 2019 and 2020, CEO of GEPA, Dr. Ifwa Asabi-Asari, said the program is also geared towards exporting Ghanaian products to rake in more revenue for the country.
The first phase launched in the year 2020 had 20 young persons fully complete the program with phenomenal success stories. This year, we have scaled up and are offering 100 young persons a similar opportunity to become well-groomed exporters. This aligns perfectly with Pillar 3 of the National Export Development Strategy, which has the objective of building the capacity of exporters to enable them compete favorably on the international market. Similarly, the output of these young exporters is meant to boost the production base of exporters in line with Pillar 1 of the strategy, which is to expand our export production base to meet market demand. We are hopeful that these initiatives, as exciting as they sound, will yield equally stimulating rewards in the not-too-distant future.
Dr. Ifwa Asabi-Asari is the CEO of GEPA. The United Nations Development Programme has stressed the need to institute systems to tackle uncertainty and enhance financial resilience in the face of natural disasters in the country. The UNDP believes insurance and risk transfers can not only protect vulnerable people and countries from the adverse impacts of crisis, but it can stimulate and incentivize growth by stripping away uncertainty and risk from society. Speaking at the launch of the Insurance and Risk Finance Project in Ghana, the UNDP Deputy Resident Representative in Ghana stressed the need for collaborative efforts from stakeholders to ensure persons and communities impacted by floods are able to bounce back economically.
Protection gaps also exist beyond disaster loss. Financial exclusion, the absence of legislation for mutual and cooperative insurance in developing countries, and wide range of demand and supply issues contribute to this disparity and to subsequently diminished resilience of most vulnerable communities. In fact, it's estimated that the potential market for inclusive insurance alone is at least 4 billion people, representing a protection gap of quite staggering proportions. So increasing affordable access to insurance and risk financing has a crucial role to play in developing SDGs and in delivering the SDGs and reducing the impact of weather, climate, and climate-induced disasters on development. What this means is that we need to explore all means to bring about an environment where insurance and risk finance is accessible, affordable, scalable for all to build the type of resilience necessary in the economy.
That was the UNDP Deputy Resident Representative in Ghana, Shukrob Kosh Mukhamedov. And that's all for City Business News on Eyewitness News. It was powered by your most comprehensive business website, citybusinessnews.com. My name is Netelineti Ajaho. Up next is Point Blank.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/City97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/City973, and Instagram at instagram.com/City973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
If you get LPG, let me see your hand. Mr. Menu, I'm not happy with you, cry. Oh, landlord, what is it? Me, what is the problem? How can you allow your wife cook with charcoal and firewood? Don't you know smoke is harmful to your wife? Don't you have gas? Oh, landlord, me, I've been using charcoal since. You're not current at all. Now every Ghanaian uses gas because it's safe and convenient. Just one matchstick, and you're good to go. Food cooks faster and the taste is retained. Hey, landlord, be that. You think I'm joking, New rule, no gas, no accommodation. Even you just paid your rent, and my friend, come for your money and leave my house. Hey, landlord, if you make a mistake and you give me this money, I'm not going to move. I'm going to buy gas. Like you will see. Don't be left out. LPG is safe and convenient. This campaign is brought to you by the National Petroleum Authority and supported by the Ministry of Energy and World Bank. Contact our toll-free number 080-012-300 for more information.
Legal issues, the criticism against the judicial system is that people who steal plantain and goods are rotting in jail. People who steal so much from the state are not rotting because they manage to find a deal and they are out of prison. Even if they are imprisoned, they get the prerogative of mercy and then go home as free men. On Point Blank tonight, my guest is at the Attorney General's Department. He understands the workings of our legal system more than many. And I'm going to engage him on the latest issues that has come up in relation to someone who ought to have gone to jail, but who is paying to be out of jail. My name is Umaru Sanda. You're welcome to Point Blank on Eyewitness News. My guest is Deputy Attorney General Honorable Afetia Yeboah. You're welcome to Point Blank.
Thank you, my brother.
How are you doing?
So well, and you?
I'm fine. I mean, I know that people are not guilty until they are proven so. So when I say someone ought to have gone to jail and he's not going to jail, I think I'm not misquoting the judge, have I?
Not because that person is now a convict. So he's been convicted for stealing. So you can say he ought to have gone to jail, but he's not in jail.
So the person we are referring to here, for those who are not following the news, is Atuesi. He was founder of the bank that collapsed alongside UT Bank, Capital Bank as a name. He has been going for trial, or has been on trial for 3 years, and at the last minute, the state announced that there was a deal that had been reached with deal would mean that he will not go to jail even if he found guilty. Walk us through how you took those steps. The proposal, was it from your side that you said, listen, if you don't take care, you go to jail, bring money so we let you go? Or he came and said, listen, I think I'll go to jail, but I want to pay. How did it work, and what law did he use?
Thank you very much. Maybe to give us a small background to the whole matter, Atuesi, together with 3 others, were charged with various offenses. As we know, in 2015, Capital Bank has some challenges with liquidity. So the government of Ghana, through the Bank of Ghana, made available to the Capital Bank an amount of 620 million Ghana cedis. It was expected that that money was going to be used to support the liquidity of the bank. And instead of using the entire amount of money to support liquidity position of the bank, Atuisian and others decided not to use the entire amount, but to take an amount of 192 million Ghana cedis out of that amount to do other things. In the course of investigation, we realized that there was an aspect of stealing, there was an aspect of conspiracy to steal, there was an aspect of money laundering, then there was an aspect of abatement of crime. So we charged the 4 accused persons with these offenses. We called about 17 witnesses. At the close of our case, the accused person put in a prayer for submission of no case. The court, after evaluating the evidence, acquitted the 4th accused person. So they were left with 3 accused persons. But way back in 2020, we had an offer from the Council for Atuisian seeking to take advantage of Section 35 of the Courts Act, Act 459. And that's section to the effect that if you are charged with an offense which has led to an economic loss to the state or an agency of the state, then you could come to court or you could approach the prosecution, make an offer of compensation or restitution and reparation. So Council for Atuisian made an offer in 2020 in respect of restitution and reparation. During that time, he admitted having stolen 27.5 million Ghana cedis. We had charged Atuisian with various counts, and as I said, our total amount was 192 million Ghana cedis. But he said he was admitting only 27.5. Before this admission, we had realized that an amount of 100 million Ghana cedis was actually still with Capital Bank. So this actually reduced the amount from 192 to 92 million Ghana cedis. Then during investigations also at Yoko, Atuisian refunded 1.3 million Ghana cedis. So in effect, the amount left was 90.7 million Ghana cedis approximately. So when he made the offer of 27.5, the state rejected it because we were of the firm view that looking at the evidence that we had, that amount was woefully inadequate. That was in 2020. Then in 2021, his lawyers once again wrote to us, making another offer. And this time round, the offer was to the effect that upon going through their end, they realized that the amount was rather 57.5 million Ghana cedis. And in that letter, they also indicated their readiness to offer reparation in the sum of 12.5 million to make it 70 million Ghana cedis. That one too, we rejected it and said, even if we're going to take their 57.5 million Ghana cedis as the admitted sum, the 12.5 offered by them was woefully inadequate as reparation. Meanwhile, we were also prosecuting the matter. We had closed our case. They had also opened their defense, closed their case. So the matter was then fixed for judgment. Then in the last hour, we had another offer from them. And this time round, they had acceded to our demand to increase the amount from 70 million Ghana cedis to 90 million Ghana cedis. This means that the state was going to be compensated in court or by reparation.
So they paid the full amount?
Full amount. But the full amount now includes reparation and restitution.
What's the difference between reparation and restitution?
Restitution is exactly the amount or the item that you think you've taken from another person and you are returning that item or amount. The reparation is where you are trying to, because you took the amount or that item from him, you are trying to, as it were, give something on top.
So compensation.
Compensation. But if you look at the act, they've used compensation as one side. The other side is about restitution and reparation. Okay. So if you look at the 90 million Ghana cedis, 57.5 is the amount admitted. That's the restitution aspect of that admission. Then the remaining 32.5 is by way of reparation to the state.
So if there's any interest the state is getting, that will be 32 million.
32 million Ghana cedis.
So the actual money stolen, which is being paid back, is around 50. The compensation for the theft, which could pass as interest on the accrued on the money, then becomes 30.
Exactly, that's the case.
How different is this restitution reparation from the plea bargain thing that the AG's department has been discussing?
All right. Now, if you are charged with an offense in Ghana now, you may take advantage of the Section 35 we just discussed. Or if your case does not fall within the ambit of Section 35, if it does not lead to economic loss to the state, and it's in respect of any other matter, you may take advantage of the Plea Bargain Act. It's now an act of parliament, because parliament has approved it. It's been assented to by the president. It's now a binding act in Ghana. In the plea bargaining system, here you're also trying to say that I admit having committed this offense. In lieu of going to jail for perhaps 10 years, I'm prepared to compensate the victim. If the victim is the state, I'm prepared to compensate the state. Then you may also say, because I'm now going to curtail the lengthy process of trial, in return, I'm begging you, state, instead of you insisting that I go to jail, drop that one. If, for example, the jail term is about 10, you can say, drop everything and make it 0. Or you also say, state, instead of 10 years, let's agree on maybe 1 year. So here you are bargaining. You are giving up something, the state must also give up something. Or you have instances where a person may be charged with stealing something. Let me even take robbery. I'm giving an example. The person may want to say, what I did to me does not amount to robbery, but rather stealing. So let's enter into a bargain so that I plead guilty to stealing instead of robbery.
Because the punishments are different.
Different. So you may be charged with an offense, but you want to plead to a lesser offense, which carries a lesser penalty.
This reparation restitution, which is Section 35, and this plea bargain act, are they open to everybody?
Yes, so far as you've been charged with an offense under our laws, you can take advantage of the Section 35 or under the Plea Bargaining Act. But it will depend on the offense that you've been charged with. For instance, under the Plea Bargain Act, if the offense is in relation to sexual offenses, you can never enter into plea bargain with the state. If the offense is about treason, you cannot enter into plea bargain with the state. If the offense is in relation to electoral matters, you cannot enter into plea bargain with it. So there are some exceptions that you cannot take advantage of under the plea bargain. Yes.
At what point can you go under Section 35, where you can do the restitution? At what point can you go under the Plea Bargain Act? Are they the same, or they are different in relation to the crimes that have been committed?
Yes, they are different in the sense that Section 35 is a very limited one. 35 under the Cost Act, it talks about economic loss to the state or a state agency. So here, before you can take advantage of that section, you must demonstrate that that offense has led to economic loss to a state agency or the state. Okay. So that's the reason I think last time we went to court, the judge wanted us to just make sure that we convince him. But if you talk about the Plea Bargain Act, it's available to everyone. It matters not whether there's economic loss to the state. It can even be aspect of stealing. It can be aspect of defrauding by false pretenses, assault, all manner of things.
So if someone steals a goat, they have to go under plea bargain, not under Section 35.
If you steal a goat belonging to the state,
okay,
then you can go under Section 35. Because your action has led to economic loss to the state, or it has led to a property led to a damage to a property belonging to the state.
But if you steal a goat belonging to X, who is not a government official or a government agency whatsoever, then it's going to be plea bargain. And does the person have to concede, or the state prosecutors can still decide that, okay, this guy stole your goat, but he has come and he says you pay this money, so we are going to let him be? How does it work?
Yes. Plea bargain has an aspect of compensation to the victim. So a victim reports a matter to the police. The suspect is arrested. Is processed for court, and then the prosecution takes over to prosecute. Before we agree with any accused person on an issue, the victim in that particular case will have to be consulted. If, for example, some A enters into B's house to steal, and A is arrested, and B wants to enter into plea bargain with the state, we need to involve
the party who came to complain.
Exactly. The complainant.
Okay.
So that you can also know his stand on the matter.
Okay.
But there are instances where they may need some form of compensation, you have to make some compensation to the complainant. Okay. But if you look at the Section 35, I said that's why it's purely for the state. And that's the reason why we go in. We also consult the state, as you all know.
Okay. So now let's talk about this specific issue for which reason we're having this conversation, Ato Essien. He has finally pleaded guilty, and this is at the end of the case. That makes him an ex-convict or a convict. What does it make him?
He is now a convict.
But if he pays the money, then he's an ex-convict. But he won't go to jail, or?
Yes, if he pays, it means that he has served his sentence. Okay. The sentence about the payment. So it says that someone having been to prison, a person having been released from prison, he'll be an ex-convict. But as we speak now, he's a convict awaiting sentence. But the technical thing is that the sentence has been suspended. Okay. If he's able to go by the terms of the agreement, then he walks home.
The proposal he put before government goes all the way to next year, I think December or so, where he's going to be paying in installments. So it means he is walking home free month today. But if he fails to make that payment by December 2023, then you can bring him back to the court and say the court, he has failed to pay, so we want you to jail him.
Yes, it's not even about December 2023. If next year by the 28th April, he has even paid 19.99 million Ghana cedis, short of 1 peso, you will cause his arrest, take him to court, then automatically the outstanding sum becomes payable, the whole sum becomes payable. If he doesn't pay, then the court in its wisdom and through its discretion impose a custodial sentence on him.
There are some privileges that are not accorded to someone who has served a sentence before or someone who has been convicted. Now that he's a convict and may become an ex-convict, what privileges can he not enjoy? For instance, can he be a director of a next bank as he is a convict now, or even after he becomes an ex-convict?
Yes, he's now a convict. It carries with it a lot of limitations on his movement, not physical movement, when it comes to, one, if you look at Act 930, the Banks and Special Deposit Taking Institutions Act, Act 930, he cannot be a director of any financial institution. He cannot hold any management position in a financial institution. If you take our constitution, because stealing involves dishonesty, he cannot be an MP, he cannot be a minister of state, and for the president and vice president, automatically he cannot. He can also not be a chief if he's a royal. He has been convicted for an offense involving dishonesty. If you take our Companies Act, because he has been convicted for stealing, he cannot be a director in any company.
And this is in perpetuity, or there is a period, a statute of limitation?
If you look at the Constitution, some of them have some limitations, 10 years. So for the next 10 years, you have you can't do that. He has to wait. And if you have to speak now, the judge even indicated it in court today. His passport is still with the court. He's still on that kind of restriction. He cannot travel outside the country without the permission of the court until he finishes paying the money.
What do you say to critics who say you allowed him work because of his status in society and that you are running a caste system? And when I say you, I mean the judicial system. Are running a caste system where some people suffer for offenses they've committed, others do not. And this instance is a clear case.
That position is not tenable. People sometimes have the opinion that it is only the well-to-do society who are protected by the laws. No. You can be rich, you can be poor. So far as you take advantage of a provision in the law, nobody can blame you. Now, this is not the first time that Section 35 has been invoked. There have been other cases. And if you go to Regents, as a paralegal practitioner way back then, there were instances where some clients took advantage of the Section 35, and even some of the clients were even charged with murder. But we entered into
the state, and the
charges were reduced from murder to manslaughter. But people do not want to take advantage because the thinking has been that just let the prosecution prove their case. If they are not able to prove it, then they walk free. So it matters not the position of Atuisian. He decided to take advantage of the law, and he gave an offer that the state considered to be reasonable, and this is where we are today. And let me even take you back. Now, those who followed the quality grain case somewhere in 2001, Mr. Kwampepra and the rest, in that case, the judge, Jasafre, made an indication that he was surprised that the accused person then did not take advantage of Section 35. You can remember some of the accused persons making the case that they were not feeling well after a conviction, so the court should deal with them in a particular way. They were expecting them to have taken advantage of Section 35. The same way, yes. Malamisa's case, his case too, there was an indication of that sort. So the law has been there, but people are not taking advantage of same.
Since 92. So anybody can really do that if they wanted to. Now, what was the purpose of the judgment as delivered by the judge then? If a decision, an agreement has been reached by your side, and I'm referring to the state now, and the accused person, why was it still necessary for a judgment to be read?
Yes, if you look at Section 35, the state may agree with an accused person. That agreement is not final. Okay. That agreement is subject to satisfaction of the judge. Mm-hmm. So if the judge is not satisfied, he may choose to throw away the agreement, or he may choose to tell you, unless you amend this clause to read this, I'm not going to endorse it. So that's the very reason why everything has to be brought to the notice of the judge for him to be satisfied first. Then after the judge has seen that he's satisfied with it, that doesn't end the matter. The accused person must plead guilty to all the charges that he's agreed to plead guilty. So he pleads guilty, and the judge will have to record the plea and thereafter convict the accused person on his own plea.
Okay. The judge was not happy with the amount of money being paid, but you have told us that about 30 million or so of it is just what you can call interest. But he was still worried about calculating the exchange rate of 2015 against the exchange rate of 2022, November, December. He thought that the state was being shortchanged. How were you able to convince the judge that the state was not going to lose money?
Yes. If you look at Section 35, it does not talk about interest. It does not talk about the exchange rate.
It talks about
reparation.
Now, reparation is something that you may want to look at the circumstances. This amount is quite reasonable. We explained to the court
today
that, as I said, 57.5 was the admitted sum. And 32 was for reparation. But we did not take into consideration the exchange rate, but we realized that 7.5 was quite reasonable in the circumstances. My brother, the fact also remains that if you are bargaining with someone, you are not sure what you are likely to get. In the criminal prosecution, we may have all the evidence at our disposal. But there's no guarantee that you win your case.
So even though you had come to the end of the case, judgment was going to be delivered. You still had a 50% chance of losing that money. So
you see, it's possible. Today there were three. Two of them were acquitted and discharged.
He would have also been acquitted and discharged if he hadn't pleaded guilty.
It's possible. If you don't do the acquitted and zero. So in bargaining, you don't have to assume that your case 100%.
Your case 100%.
Can never be sure.
So that's the reason why when we got to that stage, we realized that fine. We're convinced about winning our case, but we weren't 100% because we were not ones to deliver the judgment. So looking at the probabilities,
fine.
If you are adding 30.5 million cedis, then it sounds.
But what about the cost of prosecution? So who pays for that?
That one is the state. That's why
that means you still lost money. You still lost money.
Being paid by. For example, the two acquitted discharge. We have to use our resource by themselves. Yes.
Did they get acquitted in relation to anything he may have done or has not done? Is it because he pleaded guilty and I said pleaded guilty and has accepted to pay restitution? Is that why? Or the two was not connected in any way?
Not connected in any way. The judge had written his judgment. I told the court the last time he came, and from his assessment, the second accused and the third accused they were charged with. In fact, the second was charged with conspiracy with acquiescence. He was also charged with stealing an amount of 30 million Ghana cedis. Don't forget that 30 million Ghana cedis forms part of the 90.5 that we've been fighting in court. He was also charged with money laundering. The court evaluated the evidence that came to a conclusion that he had not conspired with acquiescence. He had not also stolen 30 million Ghana cedis, and he had not laundered any money. So, in effect, that amount, the court has come to a conclusion that that amount was not stolen.
If there's a strict argument again that there are forces beyond your control that ran this case, and that is why Atuisi had to go because of the bank he was representing and who his godfather may be and so on, what would you say?
Oh, wow, that cannot be the case. As I said, this one started in 2020. He made a lot of offers to us, but we wanted to get ourselves convinced first. And if you notice, last time we went to court, he even paid 30 million out of the 90. We insisted that if he was not ready to pay 30 million, 1/3 of the amount, we won't even accept the 90 million Ghana cedis.
So it's shown good faith.
Good faith. So we've been so insistent on the fact that nobody can actually influence us.
You have other people who are involved in the financial sector cleanup, people who caused the collapse of banks. So UT is down, Capital is down, a number of other banks are down. What happens to all these persons? There are some of them which are criminal, others are civil. How is that going for you?
Yes, some of them are in court now, facing prosecution. The UT Bank is in court now. The Unibank, there are some people in court now. Beige Bank, the gentleman is in court now. We are also now looking at the savings and loans at the microfinance. And in fact, to tell you the truth, Yoko and the other investigative bodies have done so well. They've done extensive work on these financial institutions. So we are preparing the dockets. Last 2 weeks or last month, Beige Capital was in court. Very soon, another one may also. So we are just rolling them one after the other. Our mission is to ensure that we prosecute and, if possible, recover.
This restitution thing and the plea bargain thing is a law. But I remember when the judge, you announced to him that you had come into an agreement at Atuisi, he was so worried that he even talked about the venture capital case. He said that when he read that, he wept. It means that he thought that the state was being shortchanged. How far with that case?
Yes, venture capital. Some people were taken to court. And they also took advantage of the Section 35. The state agreed with them, and I think they were to pay over 14 or 30 million, I'm not very sure, 30 to 50 million Ghana cedis. That was the agreement reached between the state and the accused person. Now, when we went to court, after filing, just like this one, after filing it, and we went to court, the judge said he was not satisfied with the arrangement. In actual fact, subsequently, the judge varied the terms of the agreement. In that variation, the first accused person, I think Mr. Duku, he had offered his property. He had some property in Kumasi and in Accra. The judge, having been notified by the defense that they had his property, in his wisdom, ordered that that property should be auctioned by the state in satisfaction of that sum. That was it. And we have done the valuation of the property. We've caused the adverse to be made. Auctioneers are on site. The last time they came, it was about the values placed on the on the property. So the way things are going, the last step we will be taking is to go back to court for the reserve price to be reviewed
so that we can auction those property to pay for that amount.
So you said that dockets are being prepared. On the case of Unibank, are we going to see Dr. Kwabena Dufo in court in the dock?
He's already in court.
Would he be standing in the prosecution's box, or will he be questioning?
When his time comes.
When would that time be?
Now we have to first and foremost lead evidence to establish our case. If we close our case and the court comes to a conclusion that there is prima facie case, then he'll be called upon to open his defense.
He is currently planning to run as flag bearer of the NDC. Would that have any consequence on your actions?
When it comes to criminal prosecution, it matters not.
You're not worried about political prosecution?
Not at all, because it started way back. If, for example, we're going to commence the prosecution now, that's when we say, oh, because he wants to contest. This one has been pending since 2020.
We wish you all the best, and thank you for speaking to us.
You're welcome, my brother.
That's Deputy Attorney General Honorable Alfred Tuah speaking to us on the specific case of Atuesian and the other issues around plea bargain and restitution and so on, how people can take advantage of the judicial system not to sleep in jail like Atuesian is not going to do tonight, even though he has stolen, and I'm sure I'm allowed to use that word, he stole state money, but he has promised to refund same. That will be it for Point Blank on Eyewitness News tonight. My name is Umaru Sandamado. Thank you for listening. Stay with 97.3 Citi FM, relevant radio always. My production team tonight, Beverly London, Sami Yafi, Fred Chabano, and Hansen Ajiman, as well as a new media team of Citi TV and Citi FM. Have a great evening.
Citi News. We speak first. Reach our hotline on 0302-224959 and get interactive on Facebook, Citi 97.3 FM, and on Twitter at Citi